Donald Trump's presidency was marked by unconventional foreign policy decisions and a penchant for inflammatory rhetoric. Nowhere was this more evident than in his dealings with Iran. Throughout his term, Trump repeatedly issued veiled threats of military action, including the possibility of nuclear strikes against the Islamic Republic. These pronouncements, often delivered via Twitter, heightened tensions in the Middle East and stoked fears of a wider conflict. Trump's hawkish stance towards Iran stemmed from his belief that the country posed a fundamental threat to U.S. interests in the region. He withdrew the U.S. from the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action, commonly known as the Iran nuclear deal, arguing that it was insufficient to curb Iran's nuclear ambitions and malign activities. He then imposed crippling sanctions on Iran, aiming to cripple its economy and force it to the negotiating table. Trump's rhetoric grew increasingly bellicose as relations deteriorated. In February 2025, following a series of alleged Iranian assassination plots against him, Trump made an astonishing claim. He asserted that he had left instructions for the U.S. military to obliterate Iran if it carried out any attack against the United States during his presidency. This statement, widely condemned as reckless and irresponsible, sent shockwaves through the international community. The specter of nuclear war hung heavy over the Middle East. Trump's words, whether intended as bluster or genuine threat, had real-world consequences. They emboldened hardliners in both Washington and Tehran, making dialogue and diplomacy even more difficult to achieve. Iran, facing an existential threat from the United States, responded to Trump's nuclear brinkmanship with a mixture of defiance and military posturing. The Islamic Republic, under the leadership of Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, refused to be cowed by American pressure. Instead, it chose to demonstrate its military capabilities and its resolve to defend itself against aggression. On April 1, 2025, in a move widely seen as a direct response to Trump's threats, Iran announced that it had strategically positioned launch-ready missiles targeting U.S.-related positions throughout the Middle East. These missiles, according to Iranian officials, were capable of striking American military bases, as well as key infrastructure and energy facilities. The announcement was accompanied by a statement from Ayatollah Khamenei, who vowed a strong counterstrike should the United States initiate any hostile action against Iran. Iran's military display was not limited to missile deployments. The Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, a powerful branch of the Iranian armed forces tasked with protecting the country's Islamic system, ramped up its activities in the Persian Gulf. The IRGC conducted naval exercises, harassed U.S. warships, and seized oil tankers, demonstrating its ability to disrupt vital shipping lanes and escalate tensions in the region. Tehran's message was clear: Iran would not be intimidated by U.S. threats, nuclear or otherwise. It would respond to aggression with force, raising the stakes and the potential costs of any conflict. The specter of Qasem Soleimani, the revered Iranian general assassinated in a U.S. drone strike in January 2020, loomed large over the escalating tensions between Washington and Tehran. Soleimani's death, ordered by then-President Trump, had pushed the two countries to the brink of war. 5 years later, the cycle of retaliation and counter-retaliation continued to fuel the animosity. Iran, still reeling from the loss of its most prominent military commander, vowed revenge for Soleimani's assassination. The country's leaders pledged to target U.S. interests and personnel throughout the region, keeping the threat of asymmetrical warfare alive. The IRGC in particular saw itself as the vanguard of this retaliation campaign, carrying out attacks against U.S. bases in Iraq and Syria. Trump's nuclear threats in 2025 only served to exacerbate the situation. They reinforced the Iranian narrative that the United States was an existential threat, bent on regime change in Tehran. This perception fueled a siege mentality within Iran's leadership, hardening their resolve and making them even more resistant to diplomatic overtures. The killing of Soleimani had opened a Pandora's box of violence and instability in the Middle East. His death, far from deterring Iranian aggression, had unleashed a wave of retaliatory attacks and proxy conflicts that threatened to spiral out of control. Section 4. Assassination plots and heightened tensions. A powder keg. The already volatile situation between the United States and Iran was further inflamed by a series of alleged assassination plots, and attempted attacks against Trump and other high-profile figures associated with his administration. These incidents, while shrouded in varying degrees of mystery and official secrecy, heightened tensions and fueled a climate of paranoia. In July 2024, a rally for Trump's re-election campaign was marred by violence when an individual attempted to attack the former president. The incident, which resulted in casualties among attendees and Trump sustaining a minor ear injury, sent shockwaves through the country. While the perpetrator's motives remained unclear, some officials pointed to a possible link to Iranian-backed groups. This incident was followed by a string of arrests and investigations into alleged plots against Trump and his allies. In September 2024, a man named Ryan Wesley Routh was apprehended for attempting to breach security at Trump's golf club in Bedminster, New Jersey. Routh, who was reportedly armed and acting erratically, claimed that he was acting on orders from the Iranian government to assassinate Trump. While United States intelligence agencies could not definitively link any of these incidents to direct orders from Tehran, they did note an increase in chatter and online activity among Iranian-linked groups, celebrating the attacks and calling for more violence against United States targets. This uptick in threats prompted a significant increase in security measures around Trump and other high-profile individuals.